Robin Ault was the junior champion that year, and that's how he got an invitation. But he didn't win a single game. Let's go back. You see him there on the bottom, 0 out of 11. Oh, my goodness. Poor Robin Ault. Robin Allen Ault was born in Elizabeth, New Jersey on December 23rd, 1941. And his dad, Leslie Ault, Leslie Fleming Ault, was a strong chess player, not as strong as his sons. But Leslie Fleming Ault was close to expert, if not expert. Robin also had an older brother, Leslie Hastings Ault, and Leslie Hastings Ault was a USCF master as well. In fact, Leslie Hastings Ault wrote the book The Genesis of Power Chess, The Chess Tutor, Elements of Combinations, and he was also a contributor to Bobby Fischer Teaches Chess. That's the brother, Leslie Hastings Ault. They had another brother, I can't remember his name, but he was not as strong. He was maybe class B. These two brothers, both masters. Anyway, I was about to say, Robin Ault, he won the U.S. Junior Championship this year in 1959, and he was actually the first person to win the U.S. Junior Championship on 3 consecutive tries, 1959, 60, and 61. This was his first of the 3 tries, and his victory at the Junior Chess Championship is what secured him an invitation to play in the U.S. Championship. Didn't do too well in the U.S. Championship, but it wasn't because he was undeserving. Let's be clear on that. He was already a national master when this was played. He was not in the top 10 in the United States, so, I mean, they did throw him a bone, but when you win a big tournament, sometimes they throw you a bone. Definitely outclassed in this event. Robin Ault died on September 16th, 1994. So we have E4, no surprise, and a Pirc defense, P-I-R-C, often mispronounced Perk, but it's pronounced correctly Pirc, named for Vasya Pirc. Pawn D4. And by the way, I tell my students all the time, and I'll tell you now, when you play E4, if your opponent does not play E5, almost always you're going to then play D4 and get what we call the ideal pawn center, taking control of all of these squares. That's going to be true against the Pirc. That's going to be true against the French. That's going to be true against Robach's defense. That's going to be true against Owen's defense. That's going to be true against the Nimzovich defense. Almost anything. You can even play it against the Sicilian if you want to. Robin Ault with Pirc's defense. D4 is in fact played, and knight F6, knight C3, and G6. Very common to see a Robach turn into a Pirc, and a Pirc be accompanied by G6 in the main line. Very common indeed. Bishop G5 is Robert Burns' variation. You know Robert Byrne, strong U.S. player. And the bishop to G7. I think we saw a game from Robert Byrne last week, didn't we? Now Queen D2, and Queen's knight to D7 is not the book move and is marked inaccurate. Since this battery is here now aiming at H6, the book move is to repel the bishop with pawn H6 and then push that bishop to the H4 square, and on G5 push him to the bishop G3. Waiting for the bot to tell me it's a book move. While the bot moving really slowly, and then the knight comes and hits that bishop again. White castles here to the queen's side. And black's most common reply is to go ahead and keep developing. That bishop on G3 isn't going anywhere. So, not played in this game against Bobby Fischer. Instead, queen's knight D7, which means Bobby should play bishop H6. He didn't. He went ahead and queenside castled. And that does get marked inaccurate. Not a surprise to me at all. I was completely expecting the bishop to come to the H6 square since black didn't occupy that square with his pawn. Bishop H6 definitely in order here. And you can see it tells me at the top, right there, bishop H6 is best. Instead, Bobby castles. to the queen side. Now pawn to e5 is actually expecting the other pawn. I always like to push the c pawn myself in this configuration. Whether I'm playing an Indian defense, I don't like to put a pawn on e5 when I've fianchettoed. Now there are a lot of lines where pawn e5 is the most commonly played move. This is not among them. Here c5 is the better way to attack the d-man, and in fact e5 is given a question mark. Sure enough, we're told here, again, right there. You guys see where I'm pointing here, right? Just below this frame, you can see the move that was made, reported as a mistake, and the best move. It's their new format here at chess.com. They've got mixed opinions as to whether I like that or not. All right, so c5 is the way to go. e5 is the move played. Pawn takes the pawn, and pawn takes the pawn. Now knight f3, attacking the e-man, marked inaccurate. h6 here, attacking the bishop, but you can see from the eval bar, white is already building an advantage, isn't he? Bishop h4, I thought he should probably come back here now in this line, but I think Bobby's going to try a wraparound. Yep, bishop e3 is called for. My thought is bishop e3, and you've got an I know it's covered right now by the knight, but the knight is pinned to the queen, so it can't be taken without being checkmated. The bishop on c5 cannot be taken without a checkmate. The knight is terminally pinned. Bishop h4 by Bobby, pawn g5, hits it again, bishop g3, and now queen e7 getting out of that pin. Pawn h4, trying to bust things up here. Now, by the way, don't succumb to the temptation of knight b5. There's a big temptation here to go after this fork, especially among beginning players and players with little experience. It seems like when this queen moves, people love to try to pounce on c7. It's a mistake because we're going to move knight c5, discovering a defense of that pawn. There are a lot of different openings where this can happen, not just this one. But you'll see that knight move away and the defense discovered. And big deal, you can pick up this pawn, okay. But your advantage was so much better. Your advantage here is actually being depleted. Because I'm going to castle. And even though you can grab this pawn here, I've got a super attack on this pawn here. And that also hits your queen here. We've also got pressure on this pawn, speaking of forking two rooks. So it's really an ill-fated attack, especially if white plays queen d4 here. Queen takes, the knight can be played here because this bishop is pinned to the queen. So if I take your queen, you take mine, right? If I take your queen, you take mine. So I'm not going to take your queen. I'm going to take your bishop. I get a star there. And now queen f4 check. And you're just giving black all kinds of initiative. If I block here, this pawn becomes exposed even more. In fact, I think I can take it. Even though queen takes queen, pawn takes queen, that fork is in place, isn't it? What else could we do here? Take the rook and give up a rook. Take the bishop first, because you don't have to take one of the rooks until he moves one of the rooks. Say bishop c4, bishop e6, and say rook hf1. Only now that the fork is not in place anymore, only now do you take the rook. And we can just trade everything down here. Get a check, drive the king back. Attack and defend. Hey, eval bar is dead equal. I could defend my knight with a pawn, but you could try to dislodge it with a pawn. So I'm moving the knight either way, aren't I? There's a few more things that can be done, but I think I've satisfactorily covered that line, haven't I? So do not, my point is, do not go after the imaginary fork that's over there. Instead, h4 was played, and now pawn g4 hitting the knight. I'm surprised to see knight h2 here. Now, neither do you want to take this pawn, by the way. Or do you? Maybe you do. You know what? I changed my mind. I do want to take this pawn because the queen is overworked. He played here. For a minute there, I didn't think I could take because it's got the queen defending, but the queen's not really defending because of our battery, remember. So I can knight takes knight, knight takes knight, bishop takes knight, and you cannot queen takes bishop. That's a blunder because it's a self-mate. Thanks for the game. So you'd have to do something else. Take the pawn, maybe. Taking the pawn hits the queen, so it's interesting. But do not, after knight takes knight, do not knight takes pawn here, thinking, okay, I'll get this super attack this way. Because knight takes knight, knight takes knight can now be played. But now I can play bishop b5 check. And, oh, I get an exclam there. Knight coming in. You'd have to play king f8, and I can continue from there. Look at my advantage. Here I would play h5. I will not play queen d8 check here. If you queen d8 check, that's a mistake. Queen d8 check is going to be a mistake because queen takes the queen. Rook takes queen check is not as good as it might look because this rook is defended, isn't it? I did not expect that move. c6 is played here. Keeps my knight out of here. f3, h5, looking for the pin. King b1 breaks. Bishop h6 anyway. Now queen f2 I didn't care for. I want the f2 square for my bishop, but that's what he played, and it is inaccurate. I like queen e1. What did the bot say? Bot did say queen e1. And the point is that keeps f2 vacant for my bishop. Queen f2 is played. Now knight c5 from Bobby Fischer. Bishop e2. a4 being called for. Now, the point of a4 is to discourage black from playing b5. So since he didn't play a4, black did play b5. Now bishop d3. Strange move. I'm not sure why it's dinged. It's just a little strange. You just played bishop e2 and now bishop d3. The real point in my mind of bishop d3 is now because this pawn has moved, he has signaled that he's coming to b4, and Bobby wants to put his knight on e2. Yeah, okay, less strange now that I thought about it. Well, rook b8 was played, and that's marked inaccurate, the bot calling for a5. I prefer to castle myself. Maybe g takes f3. Let's look at both castles, and we get a check mark. Let's look at g takes f3. Oh, inaccurate. Okay. Castles was my preference. That got a check mark. The bot's preference, a5. Robin Ault, rook b8. Now, knight e2 is in fact played. Inaccurate. Knight f1 being called for, and of course that has the idea of knight f3, doesn't it? Knight e2 was played. Knight a4 here. And now knight c1. Rook hf1 being called for. I was thinking about rook hf1. I was also thinking about queen e1. Play queen e1. Either way, queen e1 is coming sooner or later. Oh, it's marked as a mistake here. Rook hf1 with the idea of queen e1 on a subsequent turn. Why is that a mistake? I mean, the eval bar is still dead equal. Okay, now it's inching down for some reason. I'm a little bit uncertain as to why queen e1 would be a mistake, but a 0.2 difference is not worthy of a mistake. Inaccurate at best. Fickle bot. Knight c1 was played here. And now black finally gets his king castled on the 19th move. And ironically, that's called a miss. Big red X. c5. Plays c5 with the threat of c4. Robin Ault castles. F takes g4. H takes g4. c5 still in the works, by the way. In fact, you could have played that here as well, couldn't you have? Oh, nope. The bot says that is a blunder. Oh, I forgot. You have to take this pawn first. This is still coming. My mind was still fixed on c5, threatening the explosive Ben Feingold c4. Well, h takes g4 has been played, pawn h5, and knight takes that pawn. Right, that's not a good idea. Look at the eval bar pushing toward the top. No, the move here is bishop g5, and the point is to prevent our bishop from coming to h4. Knight takes does not prevent our bishop from going to h4, although Bobby does not here play bishop to h4. Instead, knight f1 was played, discovering an attack on this knight and getting marked a oh, knight f3. Oh my goodness. Knight f3 is a remarkable way to play this discovered attack. It still creates the skewer against this knight and bishop, but it puts your knight in a more central location. And if pawn takes the knight, bye-bye. You are in trouble. Remarkable. Nice move by Ficklebot, knight f3. Bobby had the idea, but played knight to f1 instead. So queen g5 defends the knight, and that seems reasonable, but gets a big red X, even though the eval bar doesn't budge. Okay, so the bot calling for knight takes the bishop. That seems to remain equal, and after rook takes the bishop, queen g5, I would guess would be played here. In fact, rook takes bishop is marked as a mistake, even though, again, the eval bar is in exactly the same place. So I'm a little bit confused by Ficklebot's insistence. I can actually let him have that and go and attack his. Although I get a big red X because he can play rook b6. Okay, well, that's also a mistake. All right, I've gotten a double exclam today, one brilliancy, and everything else has been terrible on my evaluations. It's frustrating sometimes. Queen g5 from Robin Ault. Bishop h4 hits the queen. Black is up a pawn, but white is well compensated for that pawn. Queen g6. Do not play queen f4. Queen f4 is a bad idea. On queen f4, I'm going to force you to move again. And after queen takes, bishop takes, and guess what? Remember that skewer that we were talking about? Queen g6 from Robin Ault. Now knight e3. Knight e2 being called for here. Interesting. Yeah, that adds control to g3. It enables this knight to go to g3 so that the other knight can go to e3. You could probably play knight g3 right here. Why not? Hitting the knight on h5. Let's see what we get. No, it says it's inaccurate. After knight takes knight, bishop takes knight in my mind. Okay. Not liked by the bot. Knight e2. The move being called for. Bobby, knight e3. Knight f4 from Robin Ault here. Not liked there. The bot calling for bishop takes the knight, although you may be able to play f6 first and then play bishop takes knight. See what it thinks. Ay, ay, ay. I've been doing lousy all day, haven't I? All right, you can't win them all. Sometimes I'm just not in the zone. Well, knight f4 was played, and now knight f5. It's going to keep black busy. Bishop g5, inaccurate. Rook e8 being called for. I see. To keep the knight off of here. It doesn't keep the knight off of there, though. I'm going to play it anyway, right? That wins the exchange by force because I'm forking the king and the queen. So you have to take, and then I'll take your rook. I'm going to take that rookie and eat it like a cookie. Winning the exchange. I'd say white is winning now, wouldn't you? For sure. Bishop g5 from Robin Ault, and the eval bar is pretty much in the decisive zone. Queen g3 was played here. It does get a star. I was thinking rook h2 might have merit. I'm afraid to put it on there. But with the idea of doubling your rooks on the H file, I've been bad all day. I'm going to guess this will be inaccurate again because, I got a thumbs up. And my idea is here. This is not a fork because I'll take it with the queen and I'm fine. So, after bishop g5, queen g3 was played. Bishop takes my knight, and pawn takes his bishop, hitting the queen. Queen to g7. Now bishop takes the bishop. Queen takes the bishop. I guess you could try e4. e4. When I call it in advance, I've been getting them right. When I think of it as an afterthought, I've been getting them wrong. So e4. The point of e4 is the checkmate threat. I can actually just say c3. And okay, after queen takes the bishop, I'll let you have my bishop. I'm going to play rook h4. And finally, another brilliancy. The idea is take my bishop and you're losing your queen. So you'd have to take this pawn. I'm still giving check, and you'd have to block with your knight. It did like this idea of e4, though, discovering how many of you beginners would have said, oh, my bishop's in danger, I have to take that pawn. And self-mated. All right, queen takes g5 was played from Robin Ault. Rook h4. Same thing, it's just different. Queen g7, rook takes g4, knight g6, and not pawn takes knight, but f6, baby. What a move. What a move. That's such a good move. Queen h8 was played. That's a self-mate, which is why it's given a question mark. Bobby with rook takes knight, check. And that is a double exclam. And that causes his opponent to resign, because after pawn takes the rook, queen takes the pawn, the only legal move is to block with the queen, and that is a magic square checkmate. Oh, yeah.